With state employees receiving the minimum of $15 an hour, I asked Reedsville Interim City Manager Chris Phillips if all residents in North Carolina working full-time should receive the $31,200 a year. Here's what he had to say. Wash your hands, social distance, physical distance, mask on. But in this case, mask off. And it is that safety concern coupled with a 24-hour heads-up notice that they'd be off that has employees like Asia McCombs fully satisfied.
I think when people make more money, they tend to spend more money. They put it back into the economy.
With state employees receiving the minimum of $15 an hour, I asked Reedsville Interim City Manager Chris Phillips if all residents in North Carolina working full-time should receive the $31,200 a year. Here's what he had to say.
To go there right now would cost us about $225,000 a year. And it would be probably about a quarter of our workforce would see their pay move. That $225,000 a year would just be to move everybody to 15, and it wouldn't take any kind of compression into account.
The haunting visuals of empty storefronts and closed restaurants are lurking throughout the city and the once popular Penrose Mall. High school science teacher Marcia Moore-Lyon says low wages has always been an issue.
I feel that a lot of people now are struggling because of the current minimum wage. A lot of people who work hard, they are living at poverty, and it's not fair because they are some of the hardest working people.
According to Phillips, all current entry-level city employees have received a raise.
The pay was $10.60 an hour was the beginning level. And we actually just in the last month at our council retreat, we increased that to $12.50.
Reporting for NCAT News, Sherae White. As violent attacks and killings of Asian Americans grow, some within the Asian community are starting to speak out. Political outreach manager Felix Wu shares his thoughts.
This type of violence, this type of racism, reared its head the moment COVID came to our shores, right?
Dr. Juing Zhang, an assistant professor at North Carolina A&T State University, recalls her first dose of racism pre-COVID.
The first day I came to this country, someone yelled at me, "Go back to your Asia."
Asian Americans for too long in this country have been shamefully scapegoated because of ignorant fear.
You might not even know who to talk to, right? You might not feel comfortable calling police. You don't know how to communicate with your elected officials.
In the midst of racial chaos, Dr. Zhang explains what it's been like teaching at a historically black college university.
My students treat me well, and my colleagues are very supportive. So I appreciate very much the leadership of A&T voiced their took a stance on this issue.
There's that cultural diversity there, right? And so it's important to think about the Asian American community not as a monolith, but really dive into those nuances when we think about this issue.
So we're all human beings. Deep in our heart, there's no difference. Yeah, we share the same human nature.
Agreeing that silence is not an option and wanting to break the cycle, both Felix and Dr. Zhang are encouraging all to stand up and speak out against hate and racism. Reporting from Greensboro, Sherae White, Aggie News. The past 12 months have been the busiest ever in the 56 years Johnson & Son Funeral Home has been around.
But it's sad to have to say, after COVID came in, it's just been more deaths.
Business administrator Larry Settle has worked here for over 16 years.
Before COVID came about, our business the Lord has really blessed our business to be very good.
Since the first day of the pandemic in Rockingham County,
It just kind of expounded.
And brought about new challenges for people like Bruce City of City Funeral Home. He remembers trying to get COVID-19 information about someone who died.
When we had one situation where, we asked a hospital and they said, we can't tell you that information.
That's a concern that he and other funeral homes around here and nationwide have had to consider. At first, there was limited information about COVID for this business involving close contact with bodies.
You're scared to death.
But now,
The hospital or nursing home, whoever calls, and they will inform us that it was a COVID case.
still, when the phone rings,
If I was at home, first thing my wife would say is what they die with.
COVID has changed the way Bruce City conducts his business.
This made a believer out of me. I wear a gown, shoe covers, and gloves, and a mask.
He also works to keep memorial services safe.
If you ever needed your loved ones and your friends and family around you, you need them around you when somebody dies.
From City Funeral Home in Reidsville, Sherae White, Aggie News.